At some point in trig class, you're going to come across the sum and difference formulas for sine and cosine. And they go like this. Sine x plus y equals sine x cosine y plus sine y cosine x. And the one for cosine is cosine of x plus y equals cosine x cosine y minus sine x sine y. Now they look kind of similar, and they might be tough to remember if you have to remember them for a test or a quiz or something. Each one has two groups in it, right? 1 and 2. Alright, then there's this and this. They both have 2 sines and 2 cosines, and each group has an x and a y, right? xy, 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 xy. So that's what they have in common. How do you remember what these things are? Well, you got to focus on the things that distinguish them from one another. One has a plus sign, the other one has a minus sign. And the one has the cosines grouped together and the sines grouped together, and the other one has sine-cosine pairs. Well, this is how I remember it, and this is how I tell my students to remember it. You only have to remember 2 simple things, 2 easy mnemonic devices. And one of them is from an old, when I was in high school, they had this, there was a show on Adult Swim called Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And it was kind of a play off the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, as are a few things on the Adult Swim network. But yeah, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And it's that allowed me to remember what these things were without having to look them up each time. There are 2 things. One of them is Space Goes Coast to Coast, and I'll tell you the other one in a second. When I go to write out the cosine formula, I think space goes coast to coast. It has that sort of rhyming thing to it, coast, coast, coast. That's how I know that the cosine formula is followed immediately by 2 cosines. I write coast, coast, coast. And since the 2 cosines are taken up in this group, I know that the trig functions that follow in this group have to be 2 sines. And so that's how I know the cosine one. And so since I know that one, that automatically means that the sine one cannot possibly be sine cosine cosine, because the coast coast is reserved for this one. And it can't be sine, 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 because then that would mean that this one would have 2 sines and 2 cosines grouped together. So think space goes coast to coast, 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 and then sine x and sine y. And then you'll know that the sine one has to be sine, cosine, sine, cosine. Once you write that, once you get that much down, all that you have to do is remember another little easy thing. I think sine, same, sine. Remember this. Space goes coast to coast and sine, same, sine. That's an it. Because that's how you match up the plus sign with this plus sign. And so you know that the sine one has the same sign. Therefore, the cosine one has the opposite sign. And that's the same is true for the formulas in the other way. If you wanted to do sine of x minus y, that's going to be sine x cosine y. I know because it can't have cos, cos, or sine, sine. Minus because sine has the same sign. Sine y cosine x. And if I want to write out the difference formula for cosine, that's just going to be cosine of x minus y. Space goes coast to coast says it's going to be cosine x cosine y. And since sine has the same sign, the cosine formula has the opposite sign. Sine x, sine y. So that's the way that you remember them. All that you need to do is remember space goes coast to coast, 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 and sine, same sign. Same sign, same sign.